globally because of some of the negative and positive things that were going on. So it was a great meet.
Yeah. Well, I was in Rome for 2009 Worlds, and that was a great atmosphere. And I remember going into that pool, and in Mussolini's pool, and you got the terracotta tiles, and it's just like this historic. It's quite an amazing experience, particularly when you got a full crowd there. So yeah, one of my favorite viewing venues, I guess, for outdoors and all that. So I couldn't imagine for you, and particularly with swimming was really starting to heat up in those mid 90s, and things were starting for us as a country was really starting to get some momentum into Sydney. I know Tim's got a little bit of tech issues at the moment, so probably I guess just around race tactics. So tell me a little bit about 400 race tactics. Like I remember I thought you had a specific tactic. What was your race tactic? I thought you had something specific. What was it that you would go into a 400? How was it playing out?
Well, look, to be honest, I probably approached the 400 much the same as I approached the 1500, which was really just a function of the, I guess, the way I was built. I needed to go out fast. If I set an early pace and was going fast off the bat, that would give me the opportunity to hold a rhythm for the rest of the race. And obviously in the 400, you have your standard things. You want to get a good solid lead, good solid start. The second 100, you might sort of settle into a bit of a rhythm, build through the third, and then come home fast in the fourth. And that was, a baseline that was there. But for me, just with my physiology, the way we trained, I needed to go out fast.
Yeah,
if I had
go.
Good under control pace right from the start, I could hold that and then do the big sprint over the last sort of 75 meters and bring in the legs. And that it was just really what we practiced and trained, right? It wasn't I've often have read, articles over the years where people suggest that I did that to psych out the competition, or, it was something that I did to play against my opponents, but it was actually my best race plan. I was always my fastest when I swam that way. If I tried to negative split a race like a 400, I'd never do well. Same with the 1500. If I ever tried to negative split, I just wouldn't be able to get the pace up enough over the last 500 to make it any good.
Okay, I think Tim, are you there? Sorry.
Yeah, ready to go.
You ready to go? Okay, good. We'll have a look at this 400, and it's good you give us the race strategy. We can see it play out in front of us. Here we go.
There's the final of the men's 400 meters freestyle.
Take your mark.
And one false start, but what a great start by Tom Dowell, and way up in the picture. But look at Casvio go already. He knows that he's going to have a challenge from Kieren Perkins with the yellow cap on, and Perkins not letting Casvio go away. So it looks like this is going to be a tremendous tactical battle between anti-Casvio of Finland in 4 and Kieren Perkins of Australia in lane number 3. Now this is unusual. Perkins is taking this race out very, very fast.
It is interesting. For a long time now, Kieren Perkins, he's had no one being able to touch him over this first 200. Be interesting to see whether his tactics change tonight due to the fact that Casvio and Kowalski were able to keep pace with him on this first 200. Normally he's out in that 53, 54 barrier for the first 100, takes it through to a 152, but here we are. Still nobody can keep up with him. He's first to turn 53.96. That's more of a 200-meter split time, let alone a 400.
Well, that's an amazing time, 53.96, some 6/10 of a second under world record pace. So we know Perkins is after tonight. He's after another world record, and if he gets it, that will be 3 world records in the space of 3 weeks for that man there, Kieren Perkins. We know that his fitness level is probably the highest of anybody in this race. Casvio is going to hold on there. Casvio looks very comfortable, and we know he's got the speed. So is Perkins swimming a bad race, or is he just going to try and burn off Casvio?
You notice there, Casvio's on the lane rope. He's trying to get some drag off Perkins here, but Perkins, I think, is just too far in front already. This guy's on a bonus scheme from his sponsor. Every time he breaks a world record, he gets a huge payout. So he's not going to let anyone try and get close to him. So there you have it. Perkins leading the race, 151.1. That is some 1.6 seconds in front of the world record, and the crowd has just got notice of this. They're on their feet already. The stands are packed tonight. Let's see if he can hold this pace on for the last 200. If he does, this will be the world record of the championship, I'm sure.
This is a phenomenal swim by Kieren Perkins of Australia. He's leaving this class field for dead.
What are you thinking right here?
He's only got 150 metres to make.
Look, I was just rolling through.
We watch the rest, or you want me to fast forward?
I've never seen this guy.
Swim. He's going to smash this world record unless he's put in so much work in the first 300. I don't think so. He turns for home now. Look at the time, 2:48.15. He's 2 seconds under the world record. He's going to break this world record. In fact, there's no doubt. Look at him.
He's a generation in front of the rest of the world. Look at that, he's 5-6 metres in front. Nobody can keep pace with him. He was through in 3:48. Nobody's seen that kind of pace ever before. This is incredible. He's kicking his legs in. It seems as if he's got so much more left. He's going to take this last turn. He's got 50 metres left. He's going to hold his breath. He's going to keep the rest of the field at bay. Nobody's look at his legs. They're turning this stage. He's got 25 metres left.
This, remember, is the World Championship. And look at the lead over this field. Perkins coming home now. 15 metres to go. The world record, 3:45.0. That's
Tim's running out of bandwidth.
Come on.
No one swims over the top of you, right? From here. You can't.
No, not from me. No.
There you go.
3:43.80. He's taken 1.
Oh, we just missed the end, but we know how it ends.
That was close. Casvio just getting the silver. 5
All right, I'm going to stop that.
That's all right.
behind.
I asked in the middle of that, like, I guess when you were that far in front, what were you like? As you, I think you might have said you're just going. Did you know you were that far in front? Did you?
Oh yeah, look, I think probably when I turned at the third 50, I think I knew I had that one under control in terms of the win. It was really at that point more about the time because I felt so good, you know, and it was one of those races where I don't remember much of what happened during the race. It's almost like, you know, the very best ones just seem to disappear in this blur of feeling fantastic, just sitting up on top of the water, going really well. You know, as opposed to some of the bad races where you remember every second of the thing you go through. But yeah, I think after the first sort of 75 meters or so, it was comfortable and good. 150, and I knew I'd won. It was really just about the time at that point and seeing how quick I could go.
No, fantastic. As I said, I just remember not seeing anyone in the frame. Like that's watching that footage again. That was my memory, was you were on your own. There was no one else in that frame. So fantastic. And I guess the next swim that you put down, obviously your best win, obviously was a very famous and very well known gold medal in Atlanta. From lane 8. And I guess for me, and I know a little bit of the story, I've heard you talk a little bit, but you know, you talked about you were in your prime in 94 in your best shape and as you were swimming well. Tell us a little bit about, you know, going into 96. I know trials maybe didn't go as well as you thought, or you were expecting, but just give us a little bit of a kind of a insight as to the lead up to the race itself, to set the scene a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I guess it's kind of fortuitous that 94 was the start of the conversation, because really that was where what happened in '96 began. You know, I got out of those world champs and com games double, and really the only thing I was worried about after that was winning in Atlanta. I wanted to defend my title. And, you know, I spent the next 18 months thinking about what it would be like being in the final in Atlanta, what it would be like, you know, swimming that race and winning it, and standing on the dais afterwards, listening to the national anthem. And, you know, as a consequence, looking back on it now, I sort of spent 18 months in many ways going through the motions. I wasn't as committed, wasn't training as hard, wasn't doing the little things the way that I used to. And I'm only, you know, I'm talking like 0.5% here. It's not like I was slacking off, but, you know, the difference between, you know, that period and the years beforehand, and it wasn't the same preparation and effort. And so by the time I got to the Sydney, the trials, which were in Sydney for Atlanta, I wasn't at my best. I was a little bit ill. Had a few little niggling injuries along the way, but most of that was bad preparation more than any underlying issue. And you know, I didn't qualify in the 400 freestyle, which caused all sorts of controversy. And then the 1500 came around, and you know, I managed to come second behind Dan and qualify for the team, which really was a bit of a kick in the backside for me to get myself organised. And so because the trials back then used to be 22 weeks, I think, before the Olympics. So I had 3 months to train and get my act together. And I've never trained harder, never been more focused. You know, my physio and coach and all support team were all really lined up behind me to sort of make sure we got it right. And by the time I arrived in Atlanta, I was training faster than I'd ever trained before. My, you know, my taper was going really well. I remember doing a set, you know, hundreds heart rate set, minute 40, which you know, some do. I remember doing 15 100s on a minute 40 about I think it was the last one I did, and it was about maybe 10 days out before the race, something like that, and I averaged 53.5. You know, just like I was absolutely fit and firing, but because we were so worried about getting fit and ready, I hadn't been racing a lot. And normally I always raced heaps. You know, I used to race in district carnivals. I'd do lead out legs in triathlons, ocean swims, like any opportunity on a weekend to get a race in, I'd go and do it. And so, but when I got to Atlanta, I hadn't really been racing at all. So while I knew I was training fit, I wasn't really certain about the racing side of it. But anyway, I got to the heat, you know, same tactic as always, get out fast, make sure you try and, you know, get a decent pace going and hold that pace, qualify in the slowest possible time. And, you know, it didn't go to plan. I think it was within about 200 metres, I was kind of midfield, and there was a couple of guys that were getting out in front. By the time I got, you know, to about the 800 metre mark, I was a good 8 to 10 metres, I think, behind the leaders, and, you know, really sort of hit that moment of, I guess, panic, where I thought, well, if I can't win the heat, I won't win the final. And if I won't win the final, I won't be the, you know, the Olympic champion, and all of the fear of and the consequence of what happens if you lose sort of took off in my brain. And, you know, I got to a point where I decided that, you know, I obviously wasn't good enough, so I wasn't worried about it anymore, and just decided to roll through and finish the race. And, you know, just quietly disappear into the sunset. Thankfully, one thing that, you know, I was lucky about, I suppose, is that because I was fit and I'd been training well, you know, my habit took over. You know, you do the volume of training we do for a 1500, not to get just fit enough to do the 1500. You do that volume of training so that your worst practiced habit, and even when it all does go pear-shaped, you're still going to swim fast and still swim well, because that habit of how you race and how you swim holds out, which it did for me. And I qualified 8th, lane 8 for the final, which was, you know, a real interesting challenge. And I mean, I could go on for hours about it. I know we don't have time, but it was a real roller coaster emotionally, from that kind of you know, those moments of euphoria of, she'll be right, don't worry, it was just a bad heat, you've blown out the cobwebs, you'll be fine, through to, you know, that despair that life's over if I don't win this swimming race. And about 3 hours out from the final, I went to the pool to sort of get ready for doing my warm-up. And I was just getting a little bit of a treatment from the physio. And I remember laying there and starting to get, like, you know, super nervous. You know, heart exploding in my chest, sweat pouring down my face, proper nerves. And, you know, I got to this moment where I got really angry with myself because of that state I was in. And like I can say now, I know I got angry because I got nervous, and I knew that if I stayed physically that nervous that I'd not swim well. When really I should have been angry with myself about the emotional state that I was in, because I'd allowed my my emotions to get the better of me at that moment. But because I recognised the physical state that I was in, it allowed me to sort of have this moment of, you know, the dialogue in my head. You know, as a kid, you never used to get this nervous. You're the defending Olympic champion and world record holder. What are you worried about? You can swim this race. Why are you so nervous now? And I descended into this kind of process that I used to practice when I was little. And it works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. We've all got our own way of getting our brains in order. But for me, it always started with distract myself, talk to somebody, go do anything else other than think about the race to burn the adrenaline out of your system and calm down. And once I was calm, then start thinking about the race again. And it was always a checklist of, you know, am I fit? Am I strong? Have I trained? Do I know the tactics? Am I technically ready? And you just sort of tick off all these things about your preparation and knowledge of the work you've done, which means I am fit, I am strong, my technique's good, my turns are good, I know how to swim the race. So what am I worried about? And I got to that moment where I had a choice of and I remember thinking, you know, if I keep sort of being freaked out about this, I'm going to be exhausted and I know I'll swim badly. Or do I do what I've always done in my life, which is just swim my best? And if I do my best, it doesn't matter whether I win or lose, I'll know that I've done my best, and that's all that anyone can ever really expect from me. And really at that moment, it all just sort of became, you know, I wouldn't say easy, but it just, like, I got in the rhythm of the process then, you know, and I approached it then like every other race that I'd ever approached for the 15 plus years beforehand. And I remember standing on the blocks before the race was due to start, thinking, right, this is it, let's do it. You know, let's see what I've got in me tonight. Let's do it. And you know, in that regard, the race ended up really being quite easy because I wasn't worried about my competition. I wasn't worried about getting into a match race with anybody. I just focused on my lane and my race, and you know, executed the best plan that I could, and it was good enough.
Well, let's have a look, because I think, Tim, you've got that dial up, and I'd love to see. And specifically, we'll watch the first 100, I think, just to set up, and then we'll bring it home for you.
Yeah,
Tim, are you right to go?
Yeah, right. I've got the first 100, sort of the middle, around the 800 mark.
Oh, the middle, yep.
And then the last 90 seconds. So,
oh, beautiful.
Let me get that up for you. Hang on, someone wants to join. They won't want to miss that. Faith, you're in. Let's go. Hang on. Just got to find the right screen, which is nowhere to be found, of course. Just ask another question while I find the right screen, right?
No worries. So, I guess you probably answered my question. Was really like, you walked yourself through the process, and for those watching, those young athletes, I think at the end of the day, you return back to what had worked for you previously. You kind of venture down another rabbit hole. Had you ever done that before? Had that ever happened to you before? Or was this the first time? You're on mute.
That was the first time that it happened that badly. You know, I think there'd been times when I was young when I'd get nervous or I'd get worried about races and what was going to happen. But you know, when you're little, you're learning, right? And you want to practice these things. And I think that was always a thing that I sort of you know, managed to really take away. Everyone's different, right? It doesn't mean my way's the correct way or not. But you know, for me, the thing that was always fascinating, I loved to train. I loved to go through that process of doing the work. And I think it was because I knew that that was where I was winning and losing overall. You know, all of that training you do and all of that practice that you do, and it's practicing racing, it's practicing your pre-race warm-up mentality, the exercises you might do to control your nerves, like all that's practicing to give you the skills and the opportunity for the race day. And then when the big races would come before Atlanta, you know, more often than not for me, it was almost like this kind of ta-da moment of, let's see how good I got. Like I was never really deeply concerned about, you know, failing or not going well. I just always knew in me that the thing that I was good at was the performance. And I was good at the performance because I'd done all the work beforehand. And the work beforehand was the ingredients that would give you the opportunity. And I think Atlanta was the first time that I really had got, you know, to that point of being at risk of blowing it because of that nervousness and really bringing it back to that process and what mattered most to me. It just allowed me to deliver my potential. You know, it's one of the things I often find. It's always interesting when you hear athletes talk who've had a surprise win or they perform better than they expected, and afterwards they'll have that conversation with the interviewer or whatever. They say, oh, I found 110% today. I don't know what happened. And I sort of always wryly smile to myself and think, no, actually, mate, today's the first day you got close to what your potential is. Every other time you performed before that, you've done a lot less than your potential and not seen it or recognized it. And so being able to sort of understand that about yourself and know that, you know, racing's just about delivering your potential. That was kind of the key. But practicing how to get that out of yourself is it's always a hard thing because you just never know what life's going to throw at you. Something always goes wrong on race day. It's guaranteed. And how you deal with it is the thing that makes the difference.
No, that's great. How are we going, Tim?
Yeah, of course, my internet has just had a hissy fit. I'm just restarting that and I'll log back into the Google Drive. Nearly there.
What was your favorite? What was your favorite? Let me ask you, what's your favorite swimming race that you've observed, not participated in? What's your most memorable? You're on mute. Sorry,
I've got to remember to do men's 4x100 freestyle relay at the Sydney Olympics. It was famous for the smashing them like guitars thing. It was the first time that America had lost the men's 4x100 meters freestyle relay at the Olympic Games. And, you know, the thing that really made it meaningful is that team. And I'm in the whole Australian swimming team. You know, at that point we had, I mean, there was a lot of us that were on that team for a good long period because, you know, we all wanted to swim in Sydney. So there was a core group of us. I wouldn't know what the number is, but it had to be at least sort of a dozen of us that had gone to 92, 96, and we were in Sydney. And, you know, that team in Sydney, that 42 athletes were all really there to do whatever it took for Australia to be the best team. You know, while we all had our individual swims, you know, the atmosphere of the team, we would have done anything for each other to give each other the opportunity to perform. And that men's relay was kind of the ultimate indication of that, because it was four guys coming together in the race to win the impossible, to do the impossible. And, you know, I really do believe that all of the, you know, the 38 other swimmers that were in the grandstands watching that race from the Australian swim team, you know, we felt it as much as those 4 guys in the pool. You know,
they did a Tokyo road to Tokyo, or Tokyo to Olympic thing the other night, a couple weeks ago, and they showed that night one. They kind of took through other sports, but it was presented really well, and it just brought back those memories. Anyone online who's watching who has not seen it, I know a lot of you are probably too young, but if you do get a chance, it's one of those iconic moments in our sport that even watching it 20 years later is fantastic.
I think I'm ready, Ro.
All right, mate. Let's do it.
Let's see. What can you see there? Can you see the start line? Is that all good?
Yep.
All right, let's hit the play button.
Down here in lane 8, down the bottom.
On their block, Kieren rolling forward just a little bit, and they're away, missing it slightly across in 6, the Italian Brembilla. Doesn't matter all that much. Well, look into the crystal ball. What about the tactics?
Well, I don't think, looking at this first 25 metres, Kieren's going to do exactly what he's always done. He's taking it out hard, and Daniel's going out with him, which is a little bit of a surprise. He normally likes to talk and then come from behind Daniel. That's been his tradition and the trademark of his racing. Perkins definitely a front runner, and psychologically Daniel might be saying, okay, if I'm there with you at 500, you're not going to go the last 1,000 with me. But isn't it magnificent? Kieren's been struggling, he's been hurting, he's been down. Hasn't changed his tack one bit. Perkins in the lead after 75 metres. What a champion.
It's by half a body length across in lane 4. Daniel Kowalski, 2 bronze medals so far in the 200 and the 400. Australians first and second then. Hoffman battling with Hirano for first place. Perkins around first, 100 down, 55. And Smith now is working overtime to try and stay with the Australians.
I've got goosebumps and there's still 600 to go. This is incredible. Kieren's looking terrific.
The champ.
Perkins is going to win this.
Steady on. Kowalski back in second place. Smith at Kowalski's feet. Hoffman is falling back. No.
This is unbelievable. I've never seen anything like this.
Around he goes again. Perkins after 9 field. He was down and out yesterday, and suddenly he stood up. He wants to be counted. He's talking goal. Back with 50. One of the great swims of all time. Kieren Perkins, forget the time. This is all about courage.
You are seeing the best of the best. You are a superstar, Kieren Perkins.
Savour the moment, Australia.
And look at Kowalski coming for the silver. Go,
Kowalski coming after Smith will bring Perkins in. About 15 metres to swim. This is rare goal. The best kind of goal. Perkins goes in first. What a great win. And a race for second. A race for the silver. Smith and Kowalski. They come down to the wall after 1,500.
Yes!
Kowalski got it.
Well, I'll say this, that's up there for me personally as one of the iconic moments. I was at the AIS on a camp watching that with a group of Australian swimmers, young swimmers, aspiring ones. It was like a Olympic camp that Sweetenham put on, and yeah, that was pretty awesome. So thank you for giving me that moment, and everyone else, mate. It was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah, really. I know we've taken a lot of your time, and we've got a few to go, but I guess we're going to open it up to questions now, because that's really what a lot of people have come on to be able to ask you questions. So we'll hand it over to far away.
Okay, my question is, what was the hardest part in your career? Like, when was the most challenging moment you've had when you were like just starting up as a swimmer?
So for me, it was actually coming through the young ranks, because I wasn't what I would ever say a particularly talented swimmer. I didn't win lots of primary school championships. I was never an age group champion. And because I was a 1,500 metre swimmer and I didn't swim a 15 until I was 14 years old, you know, doing the shorter races when I was young, it was always really hard, because everyone around me would be winning medals and ribbons and getting pats on the back. And I always felt like, you know, that was never going to happen for me. So I just, you know, I stuck at it because I enjoyed the training and I really enjoyed the people around me and the team. But I guess holding on to the confidence that even if I didn't win, knowing that I trained hard, I did my best, and if I did best times, I'd be, you know, I'd achieve something great, and that always got me through. But yeah, I wasn't overly successful when I was young.
Where's the best country? What's the best country you've swum at?
Well, Australia, of course, but I'd probably actually say Italy, and that was because that 400 that you saw in the Rome World Championships, actually the very first international meet I ever swam at was a meet that they used to do called Mare Nostrum, and the first one I did was in that pool in Rome. So it was actually the first time I raced overseas as well, and it went all right as well. So I enjoyed Italy.
Eddie Colley. 7 Hills, Eddie Colley. Yep.
Now there's a youngster called Mac Horton who has a question for you, Kieren.
I just put the can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
I threw the cue in very quickly. Now I have to think of a question just in case I got the opportunity. I was thinking about watching that 400 and the 1500, how you adjust in speedos, and it blows my mind. And there'll be a lot of kids in this chat that wouldn't even understand the difference between speedos and a racing suit and the impact that they have on a race. Particularly, I think probably like at the end of the 400, as you probably start to fatigue or whatever, you would start to sit lower in the water. Whereas now with a suit, it can hold you up. You can be bigger bodied, I guess, as well. And it can really help you maintain that pace for the last couple of hundred of a 400 or 1500. Did you ever race in a super suit? How big was the difference? How fast could you think you could have gone in a super suit or the suit of this era? And I also just want to acknowledge how crazy a 343 is in just speedos. You can take from that what you will.
That's very kind of you. Thank you, Mac. Yeah, look, so I did swim in the very first generation super suit in Sydney. So Adidas was the first company that sort of came out, and really it was just full body Lycra. I mean, they talked about it being Teflon coated and all this sort of stuff, but it wasn't really that technologically advanced. Not like the ones that they ended. I mean, by the time you got to Beijing, they had like structure in them and all sorts of things. But it made a difference in that, you're right, it did hold you up longer, and it allowed you to maintain your stroke as you got tired. So I think there was definitely benefit there. I always felt a little, and I'm talking about that. So the ones that had the structure in it and that had the shark skin material and all that sort of stuff, probably a whole different league, and I never swam in that. But certainly the ones we swam in, look, I think the best swimmers were still the fastest anyway. They definitely helped that you didn't fatigue as quickly, and you could sort of hold on for a bit longer. But yeah, it was quite funny looking back on some of those old footage, because you're right. I mean, you know, not that you should extrapolate out what this means otherwise, but like I used to race in a boys 8, I think, back then, and it was a material that we used to call paper. It wasn't actually Lycra, like the Lycra, normal Lycra. It was this different stuff that didn't stretch. It didn't absorb water. If you tore it, they just fell apart. And yeah, we thought they were the epicenter of amazing technology, but the super suits went a whole different level.
Why did you want to start swimming in races? Like, what motivated you to do that?
I started swimming in races because I wanted to see how fast I could go. It was really simple as that. I enjoyed swimming because for me, I wasn't particularly good at ball sports and team sports, and it's not necessarily always enjoyable when you don't do them well. And but I did them all anyway, as well as swimming. And I started going to my school's club on a Friday night just to have some fun. And I enjoyed it because I liked to see how fast I could go. I wasn't worried about whether I won or lost, because I was always going to lose, so that didn't matter. But it just meant that I could, challenge myself to see. Do your best. That's all that matters.
What do you think people should start eating like as snacks just on a regular day?
Snacks on a regular day. That's a fantastic question. I don't know. I'm not a dietitian, and I'm a very old swimmer. So back in my day, we didn't have anything fancy. We just used to eat fruit, maybe make a sandwich or something like that. But yeah, look, I think if you eat lots of good fresh fruit and veg, it'll be fine. Nuts and things like that are good as well. But yeah, you might. I'm sure there's a dietitian out there who could help. Maybe Mac would know. He looks like he's a very healthy boy who is careful of what he eats about.
How many wheat bix do you do, Mac?
Less now, but my record for one sitting is 33.
What?
Far out.
Do you know anybody who's beaten that record?
I equaled it with a friend. We were having an eat off, and we called it at 33 because we couldn't do any more.
Hey, my question is, did you ever want to stop / quit swimming at any time in your career?
Yeah, absolutely. There was periods where I found it difficult. I think when I was really little, those times when I felt that way, I was lucky I had a good team around me and my squad. We'd talk about it at times, and often, you turn up because you want to see your friends, or you're scared your coach is going to get angry with you if you don't turn up. So, I often got through those periods when I was little just because once I got there, I always enjoyed it. Sometimes just going is the hardest bit. Once you're actually there, it's really good. And as I got older, there was a couple of times along the way where I did, I did wonder if I should keep going or not. And the reason that I did keep going ultimately is that I had asked myself, or set myself goals. I had questions, right? And one of the goals I'd set myself was to win 3 Olympic gold medals in a row. And I think, when you set yourself a challenge like that, you probably only ever are going to have one chance to do it. And if you don't try, you're going to live for a very long time afterwards without ever having the chance to try again, wondering, I wonder if I could have. I wonder. And I just always felt that, I'd prefer to try and fail than to not try and then wonder if for the rest of my life. And so I used to remind myself of that. And, that was ultimately what kept me going. And, often I know that I was glad that I did, because once I got to Sydney and I raced in my last Olympics, I got out of the pool and I just felt really proud and satisfied that I'd tried my hardest to achieve everything I wanted to achieve. And when I got out of the water in Sydney, I never wondered about going swimming again, because I was finished and was on to new things.